Welcome back to the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. The full crew here. I'm CDJ. Joining me, Tommy and JB. Guys, we are within 10 days. The end is almost here.
The game's coming up. Nothing else to talk about, right? Just our excitement for the game coming.
That's right, for the next 2 hours. JB?
They unloaded stuff for us before the holiday. It's pretty clear today.
Today was the equivalent of like a Friday news dump, especially in the afternoon, but we'll get to that in a little bit here. Road to Glory. It started off with the tease. Let's talk about this first because we did not get a new entrance today, and I thought we really would. But this kind of blew people away when they saw it. We won't play the full video because I don't want to get dinged for Metallica on YouTube. But guys, what did you think when you watched this trailer?
I haven't watched it like on my full stereo sound system to kind of get the full effect or whatever, but this was something I was kind of picturing whenever they announced that you were going to go through the walkout. That after we recorded the podcast, I immediately thought of I'm going to start my career at Virginia Tech for this specific reason. I mean,
Right.
it is a pretty neat effect, and it's not first person view, which that's fine. I was thinking it was for some reason, but at the same time, just over your shoulder, obviously that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I think a lot of people are going to probably be starting with them at least in the first couple of weeks before we get our online dynasties and everything start sorted out and everything. But I think it's a pretty cool effect. I think just kind of following right behind him there. I think it's perfectly fine. It'll be interesting. They didn't really do any look arounds. Like they said, you could look around the stadium. So I don't know. They didn't show anything there. It looked like everything there was pretty automated. So it'll be interesting to see when you can take control of the camera yourself and see what kind of field of view you got from there.
First thing that got me was that tunnel scene, even in the still shots. I don't know what they've done with the lighting of the camera angle, but it looks realistic. And all the pictures they put out, those tunnel views just look really, really sharp. I don't know if it's the lighting, the camera, or what it is. Just still really impressive there. And the only thing that was a little weird to me was when you're in the open and they're still playing Metallica, and I think they're trying to give like the speaker sound effect. But it's like I think they have better speakers than high school quality speakers. That was the only weird spot to me, but that could have been either my phone or my computer speakers. But otherwise, it's very impressive.
the other thing that I didn't like, and
Mhm.
I guess it'd be hard to do, but it's the same volume no matter what camera is looking at it.
Mm,
It's like it's playing in a headset rather than playing in a stadium.
mm.
I mean, at least I kind of got that opinion. It just didn't seem like you weren't on the field according to the hearing the music playing. You were just, you had headphones as you ran out kind of thing.
So today we got the deep dive Road to Glory. This is something that we knew was going to be one of the big features of the game when that reveal trailer featured Road to Glory tying into Madden Superstar mode. Today we found out the full details. The setup seems very, very similar to Road to Glory in the past, where you pick your starting point as a player, whether you want to be a 5-star or 2-star out of the gate, depending on how much you want to build your player up, how many abilities you want at the start, if you want to start at reserve and work your way up. Not a shock here. Same positions as last year, no positions added.
A lot of disappointment there, though.
Mhm.
I'm disappointed as well, but I know a lot of people are disappointed you can't play safety or defensive end or anything like that. I understand not letting us play punter. I mean, allow us to play kicker if we really want to, but punter, offensive lineman, I understand not allowing those, but let me play a tight end. Let me play a D tackle if I want to, you know.
Yeah, they
Uh,
they didn't address either, like if the underdog was fixed or not either, because there's a lot of times I chose underdog and start the new year and I'm buried in the depth chart, even though I passed everybody the first time because it went off your overall rating. So I'm wondering if they fixed underdog at all from that last time from last year.
I think that was by design. I mean, basically each year they're going to set the depth chart based upon overall, just like the CPU does in Dynasty. So until your overall is above the other guys, you're still going to have to battle back for that starting position.
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe they should have better progression then because like I think once you have the job and you shouldn't be if you've gotten the job, I don't think you should be relegated to third string the next year if you had the job
I
all of last year.
Yeah, I know I agree with that. It should carry over, and yeah, maybe you have a tough battle to start the season or something like that, but at the same time, like you said, not buried on the depth chart to start.
And the mode seemed to have an issue where I noticed between seasons, like if you decide to transfer, you can view the overalls of all the other quarterbacks and you think, okay, I'm going to a school where I'm a starter. And initially, I thought it was a bug where maybe it wasn't applying the coach perks early enough. But then I read where the problem is the computer gets the off-season progression, you do not. So then when by the time you get to school, they've moved up several points, you have not. So you went from transferring in thinking, oh, I'm the starter to no, I'm a third string. So there's definitely are issues with the underdog, or probably really all of them when you think about the overall being factored that way. But hopefully that's been rectified. Of course, we didn't get an answer on that yet.
The other nice thing, and obviously we'll kind of get to
Mm.
that as well, but even if you start as underdog, you still can earn yourself to like a four-star recruit, for
Mm.
example, depending upon how your high school career goes.
Mm.
So, yeah, underdog, you start low, but you have a chance to build up on that.
There's some community discussion. They think that the reason there were not extra positions added is because Madden and College Football would both have to agree to do it. Because obviously, with that import, Madden's going to have to then also add those positions. And in this blog, we'll get to it. They talk about all the different situational things for the high school moments. So those would probably have to be added for every position. And then there also have to be whatever Madden has on their side added to support those positions as well. I don't know that's a fact, but to me, that seems like a really good community theory on why we may not have gotten more positions.
That makes sense, but then
Mhm.
it's not like it's a major limitation on Madden. Obviously, again, it's extra work on them, but there's no reason they couldn't
Mhm.
do that to me.
Or you could,
Um,
if you're a
Mhm.
certain position in college that's not in Madden, they could maybe just transition you to someone or a different position, maybe. I don't know.
I wonder
yeah, I
if maybe
mean,
they want to
maybe
get.
if you go from a tight end, receiving tight end, you go to a wide receiver or something like that, or a
Yeah.
defensive end to, you know, a linebacker or something. I don't know, but
Maybe they just want to get this base in place and then add positions next year. I don't know. I hate to theorize, but that was like one of the bigger requests. High school I think was number one. More positions was probably right up there as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
The blog talks about a lot of the features that we know about in gameplay and Dynasty, so we'll skim through some of those. It talks about there's new archetypes, for example, the different halfback archetypes here, the extra progression slots.
Yeah, and as well, it mentions that depending upon what archetype you choose, certain schools may not be interested in you. Obviously, the
Mm,
age-old example is Army or Navy. They're not going to go after a pocket passer. So you have to really, shine to be able to get their
mm.
attention, sort of thing. So that's kind of interesting, depending upon what you pick. That's kind of one of the few examples I could think. I mean, how many other schools would not sign a bruiser halfback, even though they're an east and west running back, that kind of thing.
If they end up being a 5-star,
Um,
especially, they're not going to say no.
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, I can't think of how many are actually like that. I mean, yeah, schools probably have their preferences, but at the same time, I don't, that's like the only example I can think they would almost avoid you.
And like in the video, what the video showed, you get multipliers for the situations. I don't know if the blog had showed that. I don't remember if it had a screenshot of the multipliers for high school, but yeah, like basically if you play and you match up with a certain school, they're going to have more of a multiplier, so you're more likely going to get points towards that school. So I think that's kind of a good way to kind of implement in your style to what the school style is.
They mentioned start by choosing where you're from. It sounds like the location-based recruiting method that we talked about last week for Dynasty is also basically here as well. That schools that are local and in-state will have stronger interest compared to programs far away. But it sounds like it doesn't mean you can't go out of state, but it'll take more to earn those offers early, which makes sense. The high school part of it, this is where it gets interesting with Team Builder. You can set your high school name and mascot, six to choose from, or you can use Team Builder. And the way I understand it from this blog is you can use Team Builder for your team, but not the five teams you play, or not the how many high school games you play. Is that the way you guys took that as well?
They didn't really specify that, but that's kind of how I assumed or I interpreted it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it would be nice if you wanted to spend the time to create the other high schools. That would be, nice to
Mm,
have. And maybe they add that at some point in the future or something. Even if it's just the look and feel of those schools, it doesn't have to be the rosters,
right.
but just the uniforms and logos and stuff.
And what's interesting, they mentioned that if you make them all like 90 overall players as their example, you won't get much competition. I'd love to know what the average high school teams, their ratings are in the game. So if somebody did want to make their high school, they know to make them, say 70, for example, versus the 90. That we don't quite get, but it does sound like do not make them overpowered. But it sounds like also you could just pick the design only. If you don't want to mess with the rosters, you don't have to. If you just want to make a uniform and all the details, that's as far as you need to go. Then you have an option whether to use that roster or a generic high school roster, which is a nice touch. Interesting. Last year, the blog, I should have pulled this up, but it talked about, you could swag out your player, and they showed a couple of uniform examples and equipment examples. This year, they refuse to give the equipment guys any bones or any acknowledgement because all it
Uh,
mentions here is to pick your appearance and style, and they added the lean body types.
It's
They
by
do.
design at that. It's
I
by design at this point.
They are poking those guys. They are asking for it. They do mention all the new animations that they added in terms of customizing your player, which we get this, I believe, applies to the base roster as well, or just straight up rosters as well. I like the loosey goosey ball carry style here.
You
I
would.
just I just wonder when the computer does generation of players and recruits, do all of them get picked? Are they weighted? Because I don't want to see, 20% of them with loosey goosey, for example. But it would be nice to
Right.
see that more for maybe a quarterback than a running back. Like if running back does that, he's not playing at most schools
Yeah.
unless he's, wide receiver. You might just because if he's really good, some coaches look past that. Running back, you're probably not. Quarterback, you probably will see it. Just interested to see how those are generated among players, whether it be, Road to Glory or just down the line in the rosters in the game.
When it's all also interesting in there in the screenshot, it actually references directly the Ashton Genty stance to where he's basically just standing straight up in the backfield
Mm.
as a running back. So I mean, I'm sure they added that specifically just because
Right.
it was kind of highlighted a lot for him last year. So
Yeah, in the beta leaks, that was one that I saw some college football content. They latched onto that one when that one
yep.
leaked. Then after that, high school begins. You get your first media moment that basically sets the ball in motion of what schools might be going after you. They have a local TV reporter, Alice Zimmer, and she's going to be actually national because everybody who plays as her is going to plays this mode is going to see her. Basically, you pick your goal or what your main focus is. Then you build your tape. This is the kind of the goal of these high school moments, the way I understand it. You can go play a game, you do your recruitment. Is it clear? I think you pick your schools at the beginning. It's like you can rank them, or is it where it's not real clear? Like, do you get tape first and then the schools show up and you rank them, or do you start with your own
I,
ranking and then it
I
changes?
I think you can pick your top schools, but then in theory, you can change those throughout the season. Like if maybe you're not getting interest from a certain
Mm.
school, you can change them out. I don't know that. But I believe at the beginning you do choose your top schools.
It's just not real clear on that order.
Yeah.
It does say that their scholarship threshold isn't static. It can be shaped by various factors, which makes sense basically like any recruit. Their team prestige, scheme fit, motivations, proximity to campus, team needs, and your answers in scenarios and other off-field decisions.
Yeah, because if your favorite school's got like a stud running back as a sophomore,
Mm.
you may not want to go to your favorite school in this mode at least. You may want to, maybe try your luck somewhere where you can maybe start as a freshman if that's what you're looking to do.
Here you can see each school's how they evaluate you on the overview tab on the recruiting board. It has your assessed tape score, your projected role, the depth chart, and the head coach boost and tendencies. So you can really see, like you mentioned, like you can go ahead and see, yeah, I may not play, for example. So it's a nice touch. I mean, there's a lot of info going on here, but I suppose that's better than the alternative where it's not clear, which to me,
Where you're
25
flying
word play
blind.
was very much that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. You mentioned that depending upon your answers and your non-playing time activities or whatever, I noticed that, and they have screenshots later on
Mm.
that if you depending upon your answers, if you're more of a party person, certain schools will recruit you, whereas if you're not, then they may not pay attention to you. It's like,
So
do you meet what they're looking for, sort of thing.
Arizona
Florida
State, here
State,
I
here I
come.
come.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Arizona State, Ohio, Wisconsin. What
Florida
were those
State.
always the top party schools?
Oregon was one of them that I saw
Yeah.
as well. So yeah,
And it mentions, like we saw in the Dynasty, there's 4,100 players generated each in the recruiting class, and those are who you are going against.
Do you
Very
remember the
similar.
total last year? Because I know they're
I,
saying they increased it, but
I don't know if they ever said, did they?
did they ever? I wasn't sure if you
I assume
guys
it was a couple
remembered.
thousand, but I don't know that for a fact.
yeah. I mean, the only way would be able to would be filter to one stars and then go through each position and go to the end, I think, and then find who the lowest one is.
By the end of the show, you let us know what you get the count up to.
I'll get right on that.
One, two.
Here's the shows the recruiting class.
And this is interesting. Like you said, you are competing against the current recruiting class. It's not like you're out on an island by yourself and just,
Hmm.
going along. You're actually trying to compete against other quarterbacks or whatever position in that same class.
Is it just me, or it always bothered me in this game? Like I understand there's a lot of cases they have to abbreviate, But in a situation like this, I'd love to see the full name. I think it just helps build that storyline or immersion. I'm sure you can probably find it somewhere, but it seems like this is a place where I would love to know the full name so I can always get them in my head as my rival or get them as in, or, players who might be coming to the school with me, for example. It just seems like the layout could be a little better, but I've seen worse. At least it all fits on one screen, which was not always the case in 25.
No, I mean, there's plenty of room to fit that. I mean, just scoot the stage over, abbreviate the state, and then you got
Mhm.
tons of room for the name. So yeah, I
That's
don't get that really.
Yeah, there's not much else in that stage part there outside of open and top, top eight and top 10. Top 10 is probably going to be the biggest one of
The
those. So,
widest one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You can manage your board at any time. You're allowed to 10 schools on the list. You can change them at any time. It sounds like using R2 or right trigger. It mentions as you're doing this, seniors graduate, new recruits commit, coaches change jobs, and players enter the portal. Tommy, before the show, you said you saw on Reddit. This is something I hadn't thought of. Are we playing the 24 season or 25 season? Or is there time travel, or are we going to lose some seniors once we get to college?
So according to the post on Reddit, you're playing your high school year during the 2025 college football season. So when you're playing, the base rosters are also playing their season as well. So when you finish and graduate high school, you're playing with season two rosters, not season one rosters. So that's kind of what that it's kind of seems to stay here as well. It talks about that, coaches change jobs, players into the transfer portal. Basically, they're simulating an entire season behind the scenes while you're playing your high school. And, in theory, you may be trying to commit to a school that the coach leaves. I mean, I'll be curious to see how the game handles that. But,
Right. If
but
you
yeah,
know that,
yeah, exactly.
if you know they're on the hot seat.
Um, Right, right. Or
Hmm.
maybe it's somebody who takes a promotion and, does the game understand that now you should get some attention from that better school or something? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, logically, it's correct. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, time-wise, it's correct. I
You
know
would,
people
and you
probably
would,
want to play with the base roster, but if you want to do that, just skip high school.
is that an option? I don't know. Maybe I skipped that. Do we know that for a fact? I assume it is, but I don't know that.
I don't think we know that for a fact, but that was someone else had said that they believe it is an option, and I don't know where they got that information from, but yeah, basically you can play high school and then play season two rosters, or skip high school and in theory play season one rosters.
Something you could probably do in the future is what year do you want to start at as a high school? Do you want to start a year before so then your rosters are more up to date? I don't know if that's even an option or not that they could do. Just choose what year you start at, but I know they've had
I mean,
options before where you could kind of choose some
in theory,
times
you
and
could do
things.
that. They would just have to kind of uh, preload the experience with the what happened in the real life 2024 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
You're playing high school during the previous actual real life results or something.
I guess you would have no clue what was going on though if they. I see why they did it. I think it might rub some
Yeah,
people the wrong way, but I don't know that there's a better way to do it, at least in this iteration.
right, right.
Building your tape. This is where those high school moments come in that when it first came out, time flies when you're having fun. Like a month ago when it kind of leaked, or the people at the media event said, yeah, you play high school, you're not playing full games. You were doing basically moments. They are very much like key moments. You're trying to build up your tape score. And that was the screenshot that EA tweeted out yesterday. Basically, you can pick the moments you want. I believe you pick four. I believe there's five here, and you can pick four of them and gives you each of the goals. School tape score boost, and there's an example later on, which I don't know how close that screen is. Sometimes a specific school will give you a goal, basically. Like there's an example later on where it's Texas wants you to go deep, and I think it's like throw a 50-yard pass. And if you do that, you'll get a massive boost with Texas.
I kind of
Yeah,
like that because you got, especially if your favorite school's like USC, that's who you're going for. Then you get to pick and choose your moments to kind of get you the best opportunity to get into the door there.
I will say to this point, obviously, we haven't gone through everything yet on the rest of the blog, but to this point, it seems like so much of their focus was on the high school side. And I I know that there are some changes to the college side, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think there was very much on the college side other than the run out, and we'll get to it, but the coaches,
Coach
not coach
Happiness.
trust, coach
Coach Happiness.
happiness. Yeah. Yeah,
And they
yeah,
had more scenarios. But I agree with you because I think once we get to the college part, it flies. When I was reading
yeah.
the blog right before the show, I'm like, high school, high school, high school, boom, college done.
Where
Yeah.
it's completely the opposite on how you're playing. You're playing moments in high school and then 4 years at college, or maybe
Mhm.
less if you go pro early.
Here's an example of the high school field, and see the run up. We've seen that in the video several times now. Once you select it for a moment, you go play. You get the goals there. It shows you your tape score boost potentially. During gameplay, you get the full playbook customized to your archetype. So that would be nice, which makes, I suppose it would be tough to be restricted in this mode, but when you get to college, you very much are handcuffed.
I was gonna say,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm curious if in college, if it still is handcuffed like it was last year, to where half your passing options are all screen passes or something like that.
The video, I think they mentioned it in the video that you are.
You're
Yeah, but I
still
think,
handcuffed.
Hmm. Yeah.
but there's
Because
something
I
in the blog here
remember
that says you
Kirk,
can get more plays though.
yeah, Kirk was saying how you can unlock more of the playbook eventually by earning the coach trust or getting
Mm.
yeah, I know he mentioned it in the video on today's video.
And when I saw this video initially, I thought it was just something they added, but it actually legitimately is in the game where there is a rival and they are designated very much apparently on the field who this rival is. And one of the goals is avoid pass breakups from your rival. So, throw to somebody else. Don't throw on that side so
Yeah.
you don't give him the chance for a breakup. So we got that one figured out. High school has its own score bug here. Doesn't show where the ball is located, but otherwise, it's a pretty basic, nice little high school score bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple little local TV.
Yeah, public access.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Probably lucky it's that fancy for public access.
I like the rival thing though. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is
Seeing
I
nice.
that
think
seeing that in
that's
action.
yeah, I think that's mostly just like the best player on defense in this
I
case or
assume.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but at the same time, I
Maybe
think it may also be based upon what position you're playing. You're gonna have a different rival. So if you're running back, your
That's
rival's gonna be linebacker or something like
well,
that.
that was my
might have been
assumption
the
too.
might have been the guy that stole your girlfriend from the old college football games. I think it'd be kind of cool to have that option though in college too, because eventually you're going to develop rivalries and such as you're progressing throughout your career in college. So I'd love to see that also kind of carry over to where you could add to your coach influence, coach trust, and those things there.
But one thing that's interesting is you can replay your moments depending on what difficulty you select. If you're on Heisman, it sounds like you do not get that restart option, but otherwise, depending on your difficulty, you get more chances of a redo, which I think is an interesting decision. Which I understand people generally in this mode probably want to just put up massive stats. So then they give you a chance because they don't want you getting burned or buried on a bad team just because you script a few moments in one game, for example.
Otherwise,
Well,
they're
and
just gonna shut it off and start over.
Or just shut it
yeah,
off and not and go to something else.
Yeah.
I would almost wonder if they give the option to have unlimited retries regardless of what difficulty you're on. Just, maybe they don't score it a certain way or something like that. But just, I know a lot of people want to play on a harder difficulty, but also be able to retry if they do fail.
Hmm.
I'm
And
just
as you
curious if they ever offer that in the future.
and as you mentioned, even if you start as a pick an underdog, you play well enough, can become a 4 or 5 star. And but also goes the other way as well in the blog as well. If you pick 5 star and maybe Heisman difficulty, you could probably find yourself dropping down pretty quickly as well. As you mentioned, it shows where you went. Apparently, I don't know how you went down on the number one player in the state, but maybe it was a
It's tier
tie.
zero.
Yeah, maybe there was a four-way tie. Now there's a six-way tie. I don't know. There will be high school scenarios, interactions with college coaches, classmates, and off-field challenges. Coaches may reach out with strong interest, pitch their program, and explain why you're the right fit. Basically, they recruit you, which I think is a big benefit of having the licensed coaches, because when we get to it, those screens are pretty cool
Hmm.
with James Franklin and Steve Sarkisian. I kind of wondered when they, did the video and the blog, if maybe the coordinator reaches out first, and then it's kind of special when the head honcho comes in and
Head
talks to
coach
you.
finally comes around.
But I
Yeah.
get the impression it's just the head coach, at least from the blog and video. I didn't see anything to suggest that it goes the other way.
Or if you're like a
Yeah.
two-star recruit, only the coordinator comes out. But if you're a big 4 or 5 star guy, then the head coach would come out.
The
That would be
grad
nice.
assistant comes out for the 2 star.
Yeah. Water boy.
Here's Sarkisian. Like they give facts about the program. Basically, they know that we dominated the Big 12, made the conference title game in our first year. 100,000 fans would love to see you. Think about it, and you
Sure.
you can either
Yeah.
be very nice or you can be kind of a jerk back to him.
Well, and they mentioned in the blog that you can say post on social media, this is your top school. If you do that, you're going to get a big boost from that school, but then the other schools are going to drop you somewhat. And then the same way, if you say you've lost interest in the school, vice versa, you're going to lose interest in them and get a boost from the other schools. So
Mm.
I'm curious what rebuff coach would do, but I mean, you just piss off Steve Sarkisian and he never calls you again, or
I think just eliminate them. Is that
yeah, yeah.
here's the James Franklin one. I know it's a little tough to read here.
Well, I will say that screenshot's interesting because he says right now we don't consider quarterback one of our top priority
Mm.
in this
Yeah.
recruiting cycles, and basically says it's not that you can't earn a scholarship, but you're going to have a more difficult time.
You'll be a scrub for 2 years.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's that smart. You engage with classmates. It's very similar to last year, except now it's, you know, presented differently, and now you're in high school doing it, obviously. This
Well, in
guy
this
won.
one you can go after the head cheerleader, so or
Yeah, I saw that.
slide into DMs. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mr. Thomas Swipe Right. It's gonna slide into those DMs.
Here's the highlight moments, which I talked about earlier. Basically, they will give you a specific moment. I guess you can decide if you want to do it or not. When you do it, they call it a highlight moment. The requesting school will apply a 6 times tape score, double the standard max of 3. Earlier on that screenshot, I think 2 was the highest we saw, but apparently you can get it up to 6. This one is the big Texas example. So here you can make the Texas highlight moment one of your 4 goals. And here's scholarship offers, and you can also improve those offers or lose those offers. I saw a screenshot, or maybe it was in the video where, Texas, withdrew their offer. It said the offer tier can change if they sign another player at your position, which is interesting. And here's a picture of the official offer. Thoughts on this? This looks like something cool you want to share on social media as compared to say Dynasty. We saw some stuff that we both commented that didn't look very cool. You probably wouldn't want to share.
Yeah, this is at least a little bit better. You've got the
Mm.
school logos and you've got the letter, of course, and then, yeah, it's to me it's a little bit better layout. They could still add some stuff. I mean, the position,
Yeah, the rankings.
yeah, some different things like yeah, the high school ranking or something. I mean, again, there's still a lot of real estate. I'm not saying fill it up to where it's clogged up, but at the same time, show some more information that's specific to you, not just replace the picture and it's the same for everyone else,
I wonder if the text is the same for every offer or if there's several different variations. I know obviously the Oregon will change to said, different school name
Oh,
and the coach will
yeah, you
change, but I
think
wonder
Hope
if
so.
there's 3 or 4
you
different
think they
scholarship
will?
text.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're like a 5-star recruit, it'd be cool to see where you were. The screen would be cool to see where you ranked overall as a recruit too in the class.
Yeah, like we're really excited to have you join, or instead of just you've earned this opportunity, instead it's we're excited or whatever, something else.
They do talk about what comes with a better scholarship. I know the article had mentioned, improving your offer, and I thought, well, what does that mean? It comes with bonuses that impact your college career, stronger starting values in those weekly upgrades or weekly tasks you had to do, additional XP, extra skill points, higher starting coach trust. They will not apply until you get to campus.
And the thing is if you accept a scholarship before you get those benefits, you're stuck at that scholarship level. You can't increase those benefits if you've accepted that scholarship. Whereas until you've signed on or until you've committed to someone else, you could in theory improve that offer. Now at the same time, just like they said, they may sign someone else and stop recruiting you or whatever. So you kind of have to balance that out.
Here's a look again at recruiting, some of the different goals there to get the impact, scholarship bonuses that apparently Oregon is offering.
Like I said, here is Oregon. If you're the life of the party, then you get a big impact there. So
Yeah.
Interesting. And here's Arizona State. They show
which
what
they
their offer
don't
is.
have the life. Oh, they do have the life of the party, but it's not as critical, I guess.
You don't have to be quite as wild there.
Right, right.
But obviously the bonuses are way less here. I think up here they were all 2s basically, except for 1. But then we also have shaded or just outlines. That's kind of like recruiting when nobody knew what those arrows meant 100%. Here we have some filled in, some that are green outline, and then gray for the rest. Does that mean that's the potential max that they could
Probably.
ever get to? But
Yeah.
you're not at it
Yeah,
now.
it's hard to tell really.
I'd assume so with the green outline is you
That
could
that
eventually.
if that's intentional that way, it's going to be impossible to tell that on a quick look from A, what does
Right.
it mean? And B, it's a white versus a light green outline. It's, yeah, it's poor design if it stays that way.
But they like those arrows in recruiting, so I'm going to give you a pretty
I
good
didn't even
guess what the
see
retail
that
looks
till
like.
you mentioned it. Now I can see it, but I
I
didn't
don't
even
think I
Yeah,
notice.
I
I
don't
have
think
to
I
pay
noticed it till now.
attention.
I didn't notice it till now live either. I like to say I noticed it
The only thing
initially. I did
is,
not.
they all appear to be 2 blocks, maybe 3 blocks after the next one, but
I
I
see a
don't
couple
know.
of fours,
Leadership is 5 here.
and that's a five. Yeah,
Yeah. And the
Right, a lot
top
are
one, academic, is 2.
a lot of them are twos and oh well, Oregon has
Yeah.
well, it didn't.
several fives.
He didn't come to play
Yeah.
school.
That's interesting. Then James Madison, they look like they, even at their best day will not have much to offer this guy.
Hmm.
You can do verbally commit to the school. It locks in, like you said, the offer is where it's at that point. It cannot get worse, but also cannot get better. The offer won't change unless you decommit. There are consequences, there should be. If you back out, the tape score threshold will increase. And just because you have an offer does not mean it's safe. It's a live recruiting class. If a school signs another player at the position, your standing can fall. Poor decisions or poor performance can cause your value to drop and your offer to be revoked. Now, if only we get this in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Senior night, we don't get a screenshot of this, but it does mention that on the last game, your player has a special run out, flowers in hand, as you celebrate your final home game under the lights. So it's interesting. They do mention special presentation items. We didn't see it, which is nice. That's not everything gets spoiled. And it
Yeah,
makes you wonder, will there be a Heisman ceremony? I think Tommy, I think you were out the episode JB and I talked about, that we had that picture of the Heisman from 25 that used in marketing was not actually in the game. So we were theorizing that maybe Road to Glory, perhaps you can win the Heisman and there's a ceremony for it. And to signing day, you got 3 teams. You can decide those will be your hat schools, for lack of a better term. But you get to pick and cut. And then signing day, we saw a little bit of this in the video. We didn't see the fake out or the throwing of the hat. We just saw the gentleman pick up the pit hat and hold it up. I don't know if he puts it on or just holds it up. At least in the video, it just holds it.
Yeah. The blog mentions, though, that yes, you can fake them out and
Mm.
throw the other school away and that kind of stuff. So,
Kind of wish that it's ones I wish we didn't know that if we didn't get to see it. That would have been a
yeah,
nice
exactly.
surprise.
That would be a surprise. Like, oh, like the first person who posts it.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
whoever posted first would get massive engagement out of it. But then people who don't live online like us, they go play the
Yeah,
game for
would
the
still
first
get to
time and they're like,
enjoy it.
"Holy cow! I can't believe I can do this."
Well, and you're still going to have those moments because, I would say probably 20% stay engaged with the media, and then the
It's
other
true,
80% just wait for the game to come out or something.
right? And here's finally the commitment screen for sharing online. Then when you
They
get to
do have
call,
the position there at least.
Yeah.
it's a start.
Yeah.
I kind of like to see the ranks though, just for posterity's sake. If you take that screenshot, then you always have remember, okay, I finished as the fifth-rated quarterback in the country, first in the state, or 20th
Yeah,
overall or something.
I agree.
Then we get to college. It sounds to me, like you said, there's so much in this high school mode, and then we get to college. It kind of
End of the
feels
blog.
like it's very similar, a few tweaks, but there's also the coach happiness, which we'll get to in a minute. There is a nice dorm room in the back. I did look for pictures, a picture
As you
frame.
say, do they
No
have a
picture of
picture
the
of your
girlfriend.
girlfriend
There's
on the
that
wall or?
cheerleader.
They that would have been a great Easter egg, but I doubt they had the fortitude to do it. A weekly agenda. They've said they've updated the energy system as compared to 25. You'll now have 5 energy points on a short week, 6 on a regular, and 7 on an off week. It's not a buy, it's an off week, giving you 1 point for each open day in your schedule, which makes sense. They've rebalanced how each meter works. It says they will now rise and fall more dynamically based on your weekly decisions and energy use, making each choice more meaningful. They say,
I don't
like
know about
last,
you guys, but for me,
mm,
when I played it, I could never, like, it seemed like I could never progress hardly at all. Like, it was such a slow progression. Even when I had a great season, it seemed like it was such a grind just to be able to spend points on your player.
Yeah, because like I was saying, I did the underdog thing for the
mhm.
for my road to glory. Yeah, and it was that was kind of the main reason that kept me from continuing to hold on to the job, even though I took it thanks to coach trust. It didn't factor in the coach trust in the next season. It kind of reset things. So, and that was part of the issue was not being able to progress.
Position I got, I had that same issue, Tommy, where I try to be a balanced individual. But I think by the end of my junior year, I'm just like, I'm just going to pour everything to XP and do just enough in the grades to not,
So you
not to
don't
become
fail.
ineligible, but otherwise then just put everything in XP to get my ratings up. I didn't really
Yeah.
see, and I suppose any of our listeners who are hardcore World of Glory fans might tell us, no, no, you should have done this. But that was my takeaway after I started playing it more is,
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
it
like
wasn't.
you couldn't increase your leadership or your brand or whatever. Like it was you literally either were very weak at all of them or somewhat strong at one of them.
mm,
And
Yeah,
that was about the extent I could get.
yeah,
I was able to maintain the grade pretty good, but not the influencer one. The
Yeah.
leadership, I was usually able to stay pretty high, but obviously I wanted to keep the health high. I didn't want to get dinged up.
right, right.
But the influencer was about the one that was probably the hardest to get. Now that could be just because I was an underdog and probably get a lower starting
Mm,
amount of followers. I don't know if that was the case in that or not, but I never really got anywhere on the brand, but I was able to
Yeah.
maintain the others pretty good.
You mentioned keeping your health. Did we ever get the answer about the um career health transferring over to Madden?
I don't know. I did not read that Madden blog very closely today. So if it was in
Yeah.
there, I did not see it.
Yeah, I didn't even read the Madden blog at all. So I read through and watched the video, but that's about it. So
Yeah,
There's-
because that'd be interesting if you're injury prone in college, then all of a sudden you're
well, and they do mention that your career health, just like in Dynasty, it is in Road to Glory as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, so
um
you would think it
in
would, but I
in
mean
theory,
in
yeah, it
theory,
carries
yeah, in
over.
theory,
Mm.
that's the key phrase there.
But they might not want a user to, face their own consequences, for lack of a better term. Like they want to keep playing the mode, but then they didn't realize or care that they ran the heck out of their running back, for example, in college, and then
Right.
only last 2 years in Madden Superstar mode because they ruined their career. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I'd read the Madden blog, but I didn't get a chance to. I figured the Madden guys on the Gaming Tailgate podcast, the Madden version of this podcast would talk about it. So I didn't feel we should really step on their toes.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are those guys
It's on
at?
the second channel, I guess.
Yeah. Like you said, we mentioned season career health. You got to manage. That's very sounds very much like we saw in the Dynasty and gameplay. We've heard about it. They explain it like if people aren't familiar with it, which I understand. Here's a picture of their Road to Glory player with the season and career health.
Again, just like last year, we got kind of excited about it, so it's a lot of it's going to be wait and see it in action for ourselves before we can really think that this is going to be a success or not.
I will say this character has 33 skill points available and he's an 88 overall. So, I mean, in theory, you can climb a little bit better. I mean, who knows? Maybe he started out as a 5-star or something, but
Where he's
Yeah, it
playing on a
says
dev kit where he
QB1.
loaded up his points.
yeah, yeah,
What?
that too.
Now, NIL deals, we had this last year as well. They've expanded with 35 new ones, giving a wider range of partnerships.
You can get a taco deal.
I
Yes,
saw that. Wasn't
there
last
it
year
is.
somebody had found there was one real sponsor? It was like Diamond Almonds. Wasn't that right? There was one real sponsorship in there.
Something like that. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I wonder if they added more real ones with in-game sponsors.
yeah.
Scenarios and dilemmas, again, sounds very similar to last year. I just hope there's more variety of them. This one is Chad wants to basically cheat on the group project. You can decide whether to say yes or no.
You can save
Oh,
your skill
Chad.
points for your XP, or you can, do things the right way.
I'm assuming if you cheat, you get caught every time. I can't think the game would
Chad,
ever allow you to.
Right. They don't want to encourage you to.
Right. I assume that I know it says there's a risk, but I have a feeling I know exactly how that
Yeah.
ends every time.
Chad looks like he uses Chat GPT to write all of his essay papers.
I can kind of see that. Coach trust and position battles. Again, that sounds pretty similar to last year, but it does say as you earn more of the coach trust, you can unlock new abilities, greater access to the playbook, more control line of scrimmage. So, I mean, it sounds similar to last year. I don't know how that matches up numbers wise with the plays you can earn, for example, but hopefully more, hopefully better. Hopefully the play calling system is better. Like you said, so
Yeah,
we're
I
not getting
mean,
three plays of the same type.
last year it always depended upon what offensive playbook you called, then you would get the same basic play calls.
Mm,
So like I found that if you chose Alabama, you're going to get screens half the time or whatever, that kind of thing.
mm.
So it's I'm curious if it's quite that bad this year or if they do have a little bit more, expanded selections or something like that.
But here's a look at example of the quarterback trust still going up there. I always thought the way it was presented in 25 was just kind of weird. It was that massive long meter. And when you kind of figured out what the icons meant, but it didn't really tell you. Like you knew the one with the play art, you eventually figured out that gave you more chances to change the play or add plays to pick from. But it never really, I don't think it ever spelled it out for somebody new or may not be familiar with football games.
Which it has it below now, the rewards
Yeah.
icons at the bottom. So yeah, that's definitely an improvement there.
Yes. Just like 25, as your coach trust grows, you compete in position battles for depth chart spots. Coach happiness. This is the one that is one that I think I understand it. I think I'll understand it more on July 7th. But basically, it seems like the way I understand it, and you guys correct me if you interpret it a different way. It's a short-term memory for the computer. Coach trust is more of a long-term thing. Coach happiness is more of a short-term. For example, in my mind, I thought, well, the coach might trust you for what you've done for 2 years, for example. But if you go out and have an absolutely awful quarter or make bad decisions off the field, his happiness will be okay, I don't trust you. I'm not happy with you. You can lose playing time or whatever based on that. Is that how you inferred it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that same way. I mean, imagine if you're a star athlete in college and you go out and, get caught speeding, 80 miles an hour in a 30 miles an hour zone or something like that, then the coach is probably not going to be happy with you. He'll trust you on the field, but he's not going to be happy.
I did a search on the Madden blog for career health and it brought up no results. I do a
Uh,
search for the word health and it finds zero results.
are you so
Mm.
automatically assume it's going to reset probably?
And I mean, to some
Like,
extent, that, like you said, that makes sense from an enjoyment factor.
Yeah,
But give me the option to turn it on or off, I guess, you know.
true.
yeah, I'm looking through the screenshots real quick here. I'm not seeing the meter even show up yet. That might be a purely college thing.
So they
Yeah.
don't even have, in theory, Madden doesn't have career health at all.
I
It's
could
not
be
a
wrong.
reskin.
I'm thumbing through and I don't see it. And it maybe some Madden fan said, no, no, dude, it's in here. Thumbing through the screens, I don't see it. There's a lot on the
And I
sphere of
mean,
influence. There's not.
they haven't really covered the Madden franchise mode at all. I'm assuming not. At least I haven't paid attention, but
No.
maybe it's,
Game
comes
player,
out then. They
no.
don't want to really talk about it before that or something.
Maybe. Let's get back to this. Coach happiness fluctuates week to week, game to game. If it's high, they'll make the coach trust progress faster. If it drops too low, coach trust low. So it sounds like a multiplier to the trust as well. If you lose your depth chart spot, you got to compete in a position battle to earn it back. So basically, I think the way I understood it and the way you guys as well, I think we're correct. I wish
Yeah,
they
like
brought
it
back
said,
the
if
little
you're
football
just
faces, but
yeah, there you go. It said if you're a distraction off the field, then the coach is gonna, how did they word it? Become a distraction to the program or aren't taking care of business, you'll quickly fall out of favor with your coach.
Yeah, he's QB2 now, as you see.
Yeah.
what affects happiness? What doesn't really when you think about it in life? Don't want to get deep on you guys.
That
Game
yeah,
performance
that's
meters,
existential there.
yeah, scenarios,
Cheerleaders.
practice. They call it short-term consequences and emotion.
The thing is, if you look at the bottom, the happiness only affects it by 1.15. It's not like it's two or three times coach trust. So it's
What was
such a
the
small improvement.
what was the name? What was the angry
The
guy?
negative
Yeah,
is
so
0.75.
0.75.
yeah, see,
So
yeah, it
yeah,
falls into the short term thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
like I was expecting something like two or two times or something like that. But
Then it talks about we finally get to game day. There is a football game in here. It's not just living in menus, hopefully. That's my concern from last year. I was in the menus more than I was playing a game, especially if you're a reserve. That's all you were doing was adjusting those weekly points, and it got old real fast.
and then waiting for it to sim, the
That's,
super sim or whatever.
and to not get in. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
This is stuff that I think has all come out, but new Road to Glory camera options based on player feedback. We still have not gotten exact word on that camera angle we saw in that Penn State clip, by the way. Just for the record, we still don't know how that works. It mentions you'll be in the cutscenes, which I don't think is a huge surprise, but it'd be pretty cool, especially when those videos start coming out around launch. In Florida, you touch the Gatorhead. Oklahoma, you run behind the Sooner Schooner. I'd rather see somebody in front of it. At LSU, you tap the win bar. So some of that'd be pretty cool. And like they've said, you can use the right stick to look around as you run out to really take in the moment. Then it talks about wear and tear being important, which I think goes without saying. I like we have a brand new font we haven't seen yet in this game. That's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Per play grading. This is an interesting one. Depending how you do, you get tracked for each moment. There's a lot of
Yeah, and
meters and
it's
grading going on here.
right, and it's yes, you made a pass, but did you kind of sit in the pocket correctly, or did you scramble outside correctly?
Mm.
I think that's kind of how it works. Not just making the play, but did you actually play make the play
Yeah.
correctly?
Now, a lot of that's kind of taken from my player on 2K, NBA 2K, where it would constantly, your grade would go up and down. Say you made a bad pass or you're shooting way too much and your grade goes down a little bit. I wonder if like there are a lot of, I wonder if this will fluctuate a lot, kind of like the NBA 2K series.
I thought that in NBA 2K, I haven't played in a few years, so maybe it's different now. So like it was very quick to go down, but very slow to increase. It
Yeah,
didn't take
yeah.
much to really mess up your grade.
Yeah, because like things like shooting too much, being a ball hog, or just turning it over, like turning it over would really kill it and drop it pretty
Mm.
quick.
At the end of the game, your final grade that can affect your followers, player XP, coach trust, happiness.
The post game screenshot, I think it's kind of the first time we've seen anything like that. Obviously, this is
Yeah.
Mhm.
specific to Road to Glory, but otherwise, it looks exactly like last year. I mean, yeah, a
Slightly
little bit of
reskinned, but
different layout, a little different reskin, but otherwise, it's all the same content and structure and menus and everything like that.
then progression, rework to efforts, they say a more natural and rewarding sense of growth. That also sounds like some kind of bumper sticker saying there. The skill group levels from 10 to 20, which we knew from the gameplay and Dynasty blogs. They mentioned new physical and mental abilities. Obviously, we knew that from the gameplay. It's about the upgrades. Sometimes you might have to boost two attributes to be able to unlock something else to get to the next level at least. And you said very similar to last year. There's not a big shock there. And finally, when you play through, you can leave your legacy. Again, it brings up features we already know about, so we won't spend much time on it. The trophy room, you can see here where it has it for, Scotty OG played quarterback at Ohio State. Here's the rewards he won. Mention of the history book here, and I'm big surprised that would have this as well. Kind of a nice screen for winning that award.
Did
I
he
don't.
accept it from his bedroom?
I would just say I don't know that you would win it there, but I mean, I guess it's better than nothing. And then gets Peppo gets his name in the.
Added to the history
Yeah,
books.
he's in there. This is where EA tells you to go buy Madden because you can then take your player and go on and play Superstar mode with him.
Or you go and pro in
Oh,
something else other than football?
That's interesting because if he is he a senior or is I don't know if retire is the right word. I mean, for
yeah,
from college
yeah,
football, it
that,
makes sense, but the big header probably should have been some other word or
yeah.
they say your next move. Retire from
Continue?
football or
Question mark.
yeah, that seems like not the word that he used, but I understand the point. Then some platitudes, and we'll see you in the next deep dive, which I guess we did get the online head-to-head and Ultimate Team, so maybe that was it.
As I said, yeah, that's the old other deep dive.
Which we're not talking about tonight, unless you guys want to bring it up. I didn't see anything in
I
there
mean, I think we can
massively worth
just
talking about.
mention that there's based upon what we saw, there's nothing changing. The head to head, I think, had a
Head-to-head
little
had
bit
some
different.
changes.
Yeah, yeah,
The
but
season
not
goes from 10 games to 12 games.
yeah, but not a big shift. You still can't
Yeah.
play online guys, just randoms or whatever, other than Road to the College Football Playoff.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say, kind of in closing about Road to Glory, is the high school again looks interesting, but in theory, that's not even a quarter of the career that you'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of they put a lot of focus in that, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
you're only going to be playing maximum of six portion of games,
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So it's, I mean, definitely, it's people were asking for this.
Right.
It's interesting, and I'll play it for sure. At least give it a go once or twice. Something that I kind of mentioned, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to have this idea, but I think next year they're going to need to add some sort of Road to Glory online mode to where you can play a career with other people at the same time. Like you're all
Mm-hmm.
trying to compete for scholarships and things like that. I think that's probably got to be something that they go the next step from here.
Mm-hmm. Let's cover some of the other news that came out for College Bowl 26 over the last few days. The toughest places to play list came out last year. I don't even know if a lot of people fully know what happened or transpired last year because it seemed like when this really took place, it was a month into the season. By that point, people really weren't looking for news. They were looking for tips and tricks. They were waiting for the updated rosters. They really didn't weren't looking for specific game news. If you remember last year, the big deal was Texas A&M was number one, which led to a lot of discussion and hot takes and controversy on, especially on cultural media outlets. They really made that a talking point for several days. I think a lot of people said, yeah, it's really tough to play there. It probably shouldn't be number one. So come around August 29th, give or take, Operation Sports was the first one that I think that really caught and pointed this out, at least that I saw. So I'm gonna give them the credit. They noticed that this is talking College Bowl 25 now. In one of the title updates, the top 25 toughest places to play changed. And EA did not announce this. They did not talk about this. It just, if you started a Dynasty or even if you did a play now and got into the game, you saw that it changed. No longer was A&M number one. LSU was number one. I know we talked about it on a show at that time, and I was pretty disappointed, ticked because it seemed like they were. I got the impression that they used marketing to dictate how the game existed for the first month. They made it a marketing point for hot takes. I mean, it really wasn't what they wanted because we had screenshots and media before that implied LSU was going to number one. Then the official list comes out and they're not. And all of a sudden, once the season really starts, when we got those updated rosters, then it kind of shifted back to the way it should have been and was before. So what gets interesting is this week we got the top 25 toughest places to play in college football 26. And I thought it was interesting at the time when on the last show I didn't have a chance to dig into this. I knew this existed. I thought it was weird some of these teams towards the bottom, Mississippi State, Michigan State in particular, being in that list, especially. And I kind of rang a bell in my head that I thought they were in last year and they didn't really have great seasons at home last year. But maybe I'm remembering wrong or not thinking through
Well,
this.
you accidentally kind of maybe said why Mississippi State's in there. Maybe it's the atmosphere with the cowbells and things going on there, and maybe that's why they kind of made that list.
I know EA made that point last year that this list isn't purely just results based. It's traditions, it's et cetera, it's blah, blah, blah. But what's interesting is that when 25 first started, Arkansas, Boise State, Virginia Tech were in that top 25, and they dropped out for no fault of their own other than, I don't want to say marketing, but basically marketing. It seems like the issue with, I think now with the top 25 is this is the same top 25 toughest place to play that's in 25 right now. If you go for CFB 25 and play, it's this exact list. It has not been touched or changed. They did not look at last season. That's where we have
That
shenanigans
yeah,
again with this.
that's disappointing. I mean, like you said,
Mhm.
Boise State was in the initial list. They dropped out. Boise State had a great year last year.
7-0 at home.
Maybe they, yeah, maybe they should be brought back in, even if it's at
Mm.
number 25 and,
That's
drop out Michigan State or whoever, Mississippi State or whatever.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, Auburn, for example, right there, you've got a nearly a 500 record over the past 2 years. I
4 years,
understand
yes.
that they're a difficult place to play, but at the same time, the record's not suggesting that. They
Eventually, they have
shouldn't
to
be
win
number
with it.
17 at least.
Yeah, I can see him maybe being top 25 with traditions and passionate fans. I'm not arguing that. My feedback was after I read like Boise State should probably be in, and when you go through and start looking at other teams that have over 40 wins at home over the last 10 years, I thought maybe Missouri. I know the game has a massive power conference bias in this list, so I'll continue it because I know some of this they may not be playing the toughest teams. Like maybe Missouri deserves in there, for example. I had no clue they were 49-19 at home the last 10 years. That's pretty impressive for an SEC school. Then I thought Boise State should be in, maybe Mississippi State, Michigan State, drop them out, lower Auburn, and maybe raise Washington. I did not realize that Washington went undefeated at home last year with a new coach. I
Yeah.
it skipped
Yeah,
my
I mean that
mind,
that's
and they've won
they
20 in a
basically
row.
rebuilt they basically rebuilt an entire team almost.
Yeah, so it's very disappointing. And we talked about before the show. Will we get another silent update now a month into the year when we get the updated rosters? Will they all of
When
a
the
sudden silently
when
update
the
this?
yeah, when the first games get ready to start, they'll do the switcheroo again.
So it
Yeah.
kind of ticked me off again that what are we doing here? Last
It
year was
defeats
it's
the
like
purpose
marketing
of the
reasons.
numbers.
Yeah, what's the point if you're not touching it? Because so this is the
Yeah.
exact same as it is right now in
It,
25.
I'd
That's
say
lame.
if no games have been played from right now until the time that you change it in a month, what's the purpose of it? You knew what their toughest places to play were in that time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See, last year
Last
people were
year,
trying to say,
like we
well,
said,
yeah,
it was somebody's big harebrained marketing idea of, hey, Big Game Boomer gets all of this traffic, so why don't we, kind of do the same thing,
right. No, exactly
and
wasn't that it ticked me off. The game
yeah,
didn't need that. The game was good enough. It did not need hot takes.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like when a Forbes writer puts out a list of the 50 greatest rappers and it's atrocious, but they do it just so they get all the comments on the social media so then they make money off of it. So it's almost kind of like that, but yet
Mm-hmm.
EA doesn't need to do that in order, you know.
And they lucked out. It slid under the radar. A lot of people didn't know that. They had no clue that transpired. We've heard in the Dynasty mode how they brought back about 14 awards last year. Most of them were generics. We had a couple of real ones. This year, we're going to have all license minus two. Edge Rusher of the Year, which in real life, that'd be the Ted Hendricks Award, and Returner of the Year, which is the Jet Award. Though, since that came out, the executive director of the Jet Award was on social media and because I tagged him in it because I know him and I've been on his radio
Local
show
guy, yeah,
before. So
yeah,
he said, "Who I contact?" And within two tweets, he was being contacted by EA. So it'd be interesting to see. I can't think it'd be this year unless they do just the name, but I'm
Yeah.
optimistic that maybe in the future we'll get a
I
return
think they
of the
could.
year.
I think they could do that this year. I mean, obviously it won't be at launch, but maybe
you
by
could
the
do,
start of the football season or something like that, they add
yeah,
that. It wouldn't be difficult to add a 3D model to, do all of that in the next
Mm.
couple of months, I don't think.
if you can add full uniforms for a team in mid-year, you can probably do a trophy and a
I
name
mean, they
change.
had to remodel Texas State University
Their whole
football
stadium.
stadium last
Yeah,
year. So I mean, yeah, they
yeah,
can make changes like that.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but it seemed like the community really took to it because there were people sharing that tweet. And one guy pushing Peter, he said, "Guys, tag this, like this, hype this. We need to get this award in the game." I don't know about you,
yeah.
but this is one of those awards I always try to win just because it's kind of tough. Like unless you play on a real low difficulty. Like I don't know about you guys. Like this year I've been trying to get better at returns.
Yeah.
It's a tough one to get, but it's a
Well,
fun one to get.
It's tough because like kickoffs and both kickoffs and punts, but especially punts, it's like the defenders just fly right by your blockers and it's
Yeah.
impossible to get free.
I've
Sometimes with like I noticed on with kick returners, if you have a certain type of build on a guy, he can get a little shifty and kind of go up the middle and sometimes and you can start on the 30 on average. But
the
punts, God, punts were tough.
Mhm.
the secret for both of them, I'll go ahead and tell you now. For kick returns, it's never pick kick return left or right. Always
Mhm.
pick kick return middle. Because otherwise, kick return left and right, all your blockers run forward, like 20 yards ahead of you. Whereas kick return middle, they're running backwards and you've got most of them, in a line for you.
Is that with
So
the two returners or one returner?
uh, I do it with the one returner, but I think it's both of them.
Okay.
So there's that.
Yeah, I don't
The
use
kick
left
re
or right.
the kick
Yeah, I
returner
just
itself, pick
picked
somebody who
whatever X was.
has really good change of direction, really good acceleration, ball carrier vision, I think also helps. And then obviously speed at the end of the day. But yeah, that's kind of the secret recipe for that. And then for punt returns, I mean, again, like you said, that's going to be difficult all the time anyways. I've gotten a few this year, but for me, I drop back one of the edge rushers to drop him deep to have an extra blocker and kind of pick up the first person that makes it downfield.
You do
It
that
just seems
manually or you
like
just move in position and he does it?
No, I do it manually. There's
Okay.
twofold for that. One is if they're doing a fake, I'm already in a position to where they're probably where the fake is going, and
Mm,
two, I'm just dropping back deep once I know that they are punting it.
got it. Real quickly, the top 25 overall offense and defensive ratings came out. It's always one of those. There's a lot of hullabaloo about it, but I always think that EA, the way they do it for overalls is weird. I don't think it takes into account depth at all. I think it just looks at if you have enough highly rated players, you're gonna have a pretty high overall. And I don't know if this factors in, the player style with the coach style or playbook style, which could give it a bump as well. What's interesting is that there's a log jam, a lot of good teams, and what I got a kick out of was this list came out, and a lot of the colleges were taking the opportunity to brag about where they were on this list, not accounting for ties. So you had Oklahoma like on a tweet saying we're 13th and 17th, and it's like you're tied for 14th, and and then you're tied for where are they at on this list? Tied for 13th. So like they were selling themselves short because they didn't want to count out the tide.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that I thought was interesting is if you pay attention, Alabama is in 89 overall, but then if you go to offense and defense, they're higher than that. Offense, they were pretty high, but then defense, they're in 96. So obviously it's not a average of the two offense versus defense or anything like that. I'm curious how exactly they get these ratings. Like there's no, if you scroll up a little bit, I don't think there may be one or two schools over a 90. There's four to 91 for offense, but then there's a bunch that are over 95. Or I say a bunch, but a bunch over 90, I'll say that.
Hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. Where do they get these, and how is it calculated? Like you said, there's 10 that are 90 or above in defense, but only four that are 90 or above in offense, and zero that are 90 in overall.
Hmm.
Again, that doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of curious. I mean, at the end of the day, it still shows you who the best schools are at offense and defense, but the calculation is still to me kind of off.
Just who you're going to see online most. That's all this really tells you.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what can we expect? By the time a lot of people hear this, we're going to basically be a week away from that July 7th launch. So I would say, let me know if I'm forgetting anything here, guys. A first look video. I have a feeling that that's been recorded. I have a feeling that it's going to be, let me see, Scott, Nick, maybe Bordeaux playing the game. I'm not going to be Mr.
Harnack.
Crypto, but I have a feeling. I think I know how this plays out because it's what we got last year. The first look sometime next week. The YouTubers have their copies. A couple of them I know Kurt Benkert has already said he has it, and he's been giving some game thoughts randomly on Twitter, uh, talking about how it's kind of tougher this year. The defensive line and the defense is tough, but I don't know if that is. I believe him, but if he's only played it for less than a day, I would rather wait to see what he says a week from now in terms of once he gets the game figured out. I know everybody at launch last year said you can't block anybody on offense. It was impossible to make
You
a
can't
kick.
pass the ball.
Yeah, and then a month later, as time went on, it's okay. Here's how you really do it.
Right. Right.
Um, Team Builder site, the current one will go offline on Monday, June 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm assuming that'll come back at some point later in the week so people can go on and make their Team Builder squads for 26. And with the 4th of July weekend, we talked about this before the show. I don't know what we can really expect. I would think there'll be some live streams. Maybe the YouTubers put their videos out over the weekend. I think some of them said that that's going to be the case. Will there be developer live streams? Last year, the weekend before, there were, but that also wasn't the 4th of July weekend.
It was late in July at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess keep an eye out for marketing and store signage. I've yet to see any tweets or Reddit posts talking about that. Have you guys seen anything yet about them actually marketing this game outside of YouTube, college football media?
No, I haven't. I mean, I don't go to a lot of the retail stores these days anyways. I don't go by GameStop or anything like that on any regular basis.
Mm.
So I've not looked for it, but I imagine that's kind of the path of a lot of games now. You don't really advertise, you know, in physical stores at all. It's just only the, online presence basically.
Walmart usually has signs or boxes, but this week it was for Death Stranding 2. So, but
Mm.
that since that just
Yeah,
came out, I wonder if the next game up will be College Football 26. If
yeah.
the limited signage the Walmart puts up.
The GameStop at the mall is right by the food court, and so going by there every once in a while. I go eat lunch there, and yeah, I noticed there's a Tony Hawk 3 and 4 big poster in the window, but yeah, I haven't seen anything for college yet.
Hmm, that's interesting. Guess they're going to use a late surge, marketing surge, or they're just going to hope word of mouth from last year is enough to sell this thing, which they're
Yeah,
probably right to
Or
some extent.
yeah, or as we've speculated, they are focused on making sure Madden outsells college
That's
football.
that is a big community theory, and I'm not going to push it back against that one. I know before we wrap up here, first, Tommy, you want to bring up a good site people should be going to that has a lot of early game information.
Yeah, it's I'm surprised they have all of this information this early. I know I used it a little bit last year throughout the regular season, but collegefootball.gg they have all of the 2026 or college football 26 coach skills. They have what they call a coach builder to where you can kind of build out an overview of what you want your coach to be. They have the recruiting inside engine, and it kind of outlines some of the different pitches and things like that. Um, there, there, there's a lot of stuff out there. One of the big ones last year was the playbooks, to where you could search for different plays and formations and things like that. Based upon what I can see, they're not updated for 2026. But yeah, it's like I said, they've got a lot of information already. And I'm sure that they do have all the player abilities, the coach skills. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there already, and I'm sure Eventually, they'll have the playbooks. There was also CFB.fan that also did the playbooks last year. I'm sure they'll have them again this year. So yeah, but some of this stuff is already coming out. You have to wonder how they get a hold of this kind of stuff, 2 weeks before launch. But then again, it is out there, so take advantage of it and take a look at it.
There's also teamcrafters.net, which has the rosters. So I'm assuming EA is giving all these sites this, but nobody's ever come out and clarified exactly and said
Leak.
EA, yeah, they don't even say that. They just, oh, we have it, and that's the extent of it. I've yet to actually hear, confirmation.
The other side of that, you mentioned teamcrafters.net.
Mm.
Their rosters with the like offense and defense
Mm.
ratings that EA released today, they are in line with Team Crafters has. So it's, some people and even we speculated, did they just kind of generate this on their own and make it up? But no, it appears that it is, legitimate. So
Yeah, it's a pretty handy site. I was talking to Quizzy about Nebraska's roster. He absolutely studies it and has it down to an art form. He had noticed that, like, say for Nebraska, for example, and I'd love to know if other schools are like this. Let me see if I can pull it up by positions. He noticed that Nebraska has three kickers as of right now in the game. So he said, well, I hope that doesn't mean that they're losing. But I believe last year, and we had some discussion about this, didn't they oversign? Like when they did the math, it admitted how many players that you had. Like they paid more players than they put in the game. So I wonder if some of these guys may not be in retail because
I'd
until
be
the freshmen
I'd
come
be
in,
surprised at that.
transfer come in. I thought that was the case last year. I thought somebody did the math and they figured out that there were some schools that had more players signed than got in the game.
Well,
I'd
and
have to
yeah, that's the
revisit.
case. But if you notice, they're showing three of 85 players. There's 85 players on the rosters. That's what EA limits the rosters to. So
Right.
I think this is probably what you're going to get at launch.
I asked Quizzy, some of these are generics.
Okay. Okay.
That this has fictional players because he noticed that there were some incoming freshmen that were not on here. Some of the top corners he said, I believe, were all not in here at this time as well. So it's worth tracking this, and I've been checking it every day because they had June 19th and then June 21st. So I would think if they're getting
Oh,
this
wow.
stuff somewhat
Okay.
regularly, we should be getting another push here soon of whatever the roster is going to be for launch, which I guess still, could
Again,
be a week away.
yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they are getting full extracts for these, twice in a week or whatever. I mean,
Mm.
it's not a complete shock, I guess, but it'd be interesting to track all of these before release, how many there actually are.
Last thing, JB, you were not with us for your Dynasty thoughts and Dynasty and Team Builder thoughts. As best you can, summation. What did you think of Dynasty now that you've had a couple days to digest it since that blog and deep dive came out?
Hopefully, I like the history part of things, especially if it's gonna hold true for Online Dynasty. I
Mm.
think that's gonna be a real cool thing to go back and look at. Hopefully, it's detailed and the trophy room, same thing. Hopefully, I have a feeling the trophy room is probably going to be not as detailed as we want, and but yet, those kind of things that added in there, I thought were pretty good.
Mm.
That I'm pretty happy with. In recruiting, I was really happy with the scaling of point costs for based on where the recruit is located. I kind of like that. Always found myself trying to maximize my board. It was kind of hard throwing a 40 at people to get recruiting
Mm.
or to come in, and so then I would always have to kind of just see
Mm.
what recruit am I going to sacrifice. So, okay, I'm leading big on this guy, or I'm the only guy chasing this guy, maybe I can take points off. I
Mm.
think that's going to kind of help with maximizing your board, being able to with especially if you're really trying to go after recruits that are close to home.
Mm.
The season long wear and tear is going to be interesting. Again, like I said, we were very excited about wear and tear last year,
Right.
and we're left kind of disappointed. It was almost more of a hamstring than a reality kind of based thing
Mm.
to us, I think. And so I really hope that that is tweaked to where things are kind of make sense, kind of like what we thought it would be last year. Also in recruiting, it's gonna be fun to see this, but the recruiting battle, especially
Mm.
on online dynasties when it's two users that are gonna be button heads, I think
Mm.
that's gonna be fun to kind of keep track of. between, especially if you have kind of a message board like we do. We have a Discord for our online dynasty, so it'd be kind of fun. Maybe talk a little smack if you get into that recruiting battle. I think that's a good addition to kind of spice things up at the tail end of things. Other than that, I'm excited to see how the transfer portal plays out, just because they added they kind of are kind of adding into that. I don't know if it's going to make a big difference, but maybe it'll at least, with adding more recruits to it, maybe help you build your team a little better, because there were times where the transfer portal was just complete crap from year to year for your
Right.
team. There was just nobody there.
It got worse every year.
Well, it was weird. It was like there would be a few 4 stars would be wanting interest, but then 0 3 stars. It just didn't make any rhyme or reason of who was in your top 10. So, so I'm curious to see that. I am a little disappointed that it sounds like the carousel is not really going to be fixed. Um, I don't, I mean, they mentioned it, but I'm not, I just, it doesn't seem like they addressed what is the main issue with that. And it's just so weird how 14 had such a fun system with the coaching carousel. And now, I wish there was just some way to implement how they had 14 work into the current into the current thing there. So, another thing is it'll be interesting to see progressing your coach, because going to 100 now, you're going to be able to and you're going to be able to advance quickly and then kind of plateau, and then you got to kind of grind it out to get higher up. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how much we can reach. Like with our season, we got a few guys that got kind of close to the 50 cap, but like I know I didn't have nearly much unlocked. Like I didn't have any of the special things unlocked. Once you hit 50, do you still get like any things do you still get recruiting or the coin stuff? You don't. So you're basically stuck.
You're done once you hit 50. Yep.
Yeah. So those are kind of the key things that stood out for me. But especially, a lot of this is, majority of my time is in an online dynasty for my play. So that's where the kind of the history kind of trophy room and the history kind of are some things to, at least give us something to go back to, look at, and kind of, think about, especially when we hit this point next year. It's going to be kind of cool to go back and see all that stuff and how we kind of progress from there.
With that, we'll wrap up this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. We're getting there, nearly a week away. For Tommy and JB, I'm CDJ. Everyone, thank you for listening and watching to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast.